In the heart of the West, some men were legends and others were ghosts. Their names were whispered like curses, their shadows heavier than the sins they carried. But then, there was Elias Thorne. To the folks of Willow Ridge, he was just a cold stranger who rode in at dusk and was gone before dawn. A man who spoke little, prayed less, and seemed to care for no one. They said his heart froze the day he buried someone he never, ever spoke about. Others swore they'd seen him staring at the horizon, like a man who just didn't belong among the living anymore. But on a December evening, when the wind howled like a wounded animal and the snow fell in hard, unforgiving sheets, fate placed something in Elias's path, something that could thaw even a dead man's soul. A child. The town's church bell rang out just once, a desperate, lonely clang swallowed by the storm. Elias was leading his horse along the snow-choked road, head down, his coat stiff with frost. He planned to sleep in the abandoned barn outside town, far from judging eyes. But then he saw it. Movement. A small, stumbling figure in the white darkness, a little boy, no older than 7, collapsing face first into the snow. Elias's boots stopped. For a long minute he just stood there, his breath harsh in the frozen air. He knew what saving that child meant. It meant stepping back into a world he had sworn to avoid. A world where hearts could feel, could care, and could break. "Don't," he muttered to himself, his jaw tightening. Not again. But the wind answered with a low, mournful cry, and the boy didn't move. Elias exhaled through clenched teeth and strode forward, kneeling in the snow. He rolled the boy gently into his arms. The child's skin was ice cold, his lips a frightening shade of blue. Then a sliver of a whisper escaped him. Ma, said you would help." And his eyes fluttered shut. Elias felt something sting inside his chest, a pain he thought time had killed long ago. His voice came out rough like boots over gravel. "Easy, kid. I got you." He lifted the child, wrapping him in his own worn coat. Snow pelted them like bullets as he mounted his horse, holding the boy tight against him. With a dig of his heels, he turned his horse back toward Willow Ridge. The saloon doors burst open, and a swirl of snow followed Elias inside. Lanterns cast a soft amber light on the rough timber walls. The piano in the corner fell silent. Conversations died. Cards froze mid-air. Every single eye turned to him. Elias Thorne never came inside town, not unless something was burning or dying, and now he was carrying a child. Dr. Avery Blake, a gentle, bearded man with the patience of a saint, rushed forward. "Good Lord, who is he?" "Found him outside town," Elias answered, his voice flat, barely breathing. The doctor brushed frost from the boy's cheeks and checked his pulse. His face grew grim. "He's fading fast. Elias, I need blankets, hot water, and you'll have to hold him. His body needs your warmth." Elias stiffened. "Get someone else." Dr. Blake met his gaze, his expression stern but pleading. "There is no one else. The town's nearly empty tonight. It's Christmas Eve. Folks are traveling." Elias looked down at the boy. So fragile, shaking even in unconsciousness, his small fingers clinging to his coat as if heaven itself had commanded him not to let go. He let out a low, heavy sigh of resignation. "What's his name?" The doctor shook his head. "We don't know yet." A soft, trembling voice spoke up from the doorway. "I do." Everyone turned. A woman stood there, her hair dusted white with snow, her arms wrapped tightly in a shawl. Her dress was worn, her boots barely holding together. The raw, desperate worry in her eyes sliced through the room like a knife. "That's Samuel," she whispered. "He's my son." Elias froze. He recognized her then. Claire Bennett, the widow of a schoolteacher, a woman who once seemed full of gentle laughter and sunlight. Now, she looked like the storm itself had carved sorrow into her very bones. She stepped forward, tears filling her eyes as she looked at her boy. Samuel wandered off this morning. I've been searching ever since." Her voice cracked as fragile as winter glass. "I thought I'd lost him." Elias cleared his throat, his voice low. "Help the doctor. He'll need strength to make it through this." She nodded, but her gaze lingered on Elias, truly seeing him for the first time. Not the rumors, not the shadows, just a man holding a child like he was terrified of breaking what was left of the world. His shirt grew soaked with melting snow, and his arms went numb from holding the small body against his chest. But he did not let go. Dr. Blake worked tirelessly. Claire prayed until her voice broke, and just before dawn, as the storm finally quieted and a pale ribbon of morning crept beneath the saloon door, the boy stirred. A tiny cough, a weak breath, and then a whisper. "Ma." Claire collapsed into sobs, clutching Samuel's small hand. Dr. Blake let out a long breath and wiped his brow, and Elias Thorne, the man they called colder than winter itself, simply looked away, his jaw trembling once, a barely noticeable tremor, but Claire saw it. And before she could speak, before she could thank him, the saloon doors slammed open again. A deputy rushed in, his face red from the cold, his voice shaking. "Sheriff, riders coming from the north, armed men." Everyone stiffened. Guns shifted. Fear crept back in like the cold. The deputy swallowed hard. "It's the Whitlock gang. They're asking for Elias Thorne by name." Elias slowly rose, his eyes turning to the snow-glazed windows. Outside, hooves thundered in the new quiet. Snow drifted down like ashes from a gray, unforgiving sky. Outside the saloon, the air trembled with the echo of hooves. The Whitlock gang. Their name was a curse whispered in saloons from Dodge all the way to Montana, and now they were here, waiting. Inside, the silence was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Claire held her son, Samuel, so close, her hands trembling as if her love alone could stop a bullet. Dr. Blake tried to calm everyone, but even his voice shook. The townsfolk, drawn by rumors of gunfire, shuffled in, their faces pale in the flickering light of their lanterns. The sheriff, a man worn down by years and duty, turned to a solitary figure. "Thorne," he said, his voice quiet but heavy. "Why are they here for you?" Elias didn't answer right away. His eyes, the color of storm cloud steel, were fixed on the door, like a man who'd spent his life running from one shadow only to find a bigger one waiting. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and hollow. "Because there's a debt between us, one that ends today." Sheriff Warren took a slow, deep breath. "You plan to step out there?" Elias gave a grim nod. "I don't see another way." Just then, Claire stood up, a mixture of raw fear and fierce courage. "You saved my boy," she whispered, her voice trembling but firm. "Let us save you." Elias looked at her, and for a fleeting moment a crack appeared in the walls he'd built around himself. It was a look of longing, of deep regret. "No one can," he said softly, and started for the door, each step heavy with fate. As his hand reached for the handle, a tiny hand tugged at his coat. It was Samuel. The boy's voice was faint but clear. "Mister, don't go." The whole world seemed to stop, narrowing to that one fragile plea. Elias knelt down, his gaze softening in a way no one in that room had ever seen. "There are men out there who belong to the devil," he murmured, his voice just for the boy. "Sometimes the only way to stop them is to face them." Samuel's lower lip quivered. "But Mama says God sends angels." Elias's breath caught in his throat. His fingers gently brushed the boy's hair, a touch so tender it nearly broke Claire's heart. "I ain't no angel, kid." Samuel managed a small, tired smile. "Then, be a good cowboy." And in that moment, something shifted. Elias Thorne, a man of shadows, silence, and sorrow, stood a little taller. Not for glory, not for vengeance, but because a child believed he could be something more. Outside, the wind howled through the street like a final warning. The Whitlocks sat on their horses like black specters against the snow. 11 riders, their rifles gleaming. Their leader, Jeb Whitlock, tipped his hat with a slow, poisonous grin. Well, I'll be damned. Elias Thorne came home to die. Elias stepped out into the snow, his coat hanging open, his hands empty. "Let the town be," he called out, his voice cutting through the wind. "This is between you and me." Jeb let out a dry chuckle that sounded like a rattle in a coffin. "You killed my brother, Thorne." Elias's voice was cold as the steel he carried, and he earned it. Jeb's grin vanished. His hand dropped to his holster. "And now I'll earn mine." Suddenly, the saloon doors burst open. The sheriff stood there, rifle raised. "Whitlock, this town won't be your killing ground," Jeb sneered. "We ain't after the town, but you hide a wolf among sheep, you get blood." Elias raised a hand, motioning the sheriff to stand down. "This ends with me." Claire rushed out behind them, her voice cracking. "It doesn't have to be this way." Jeb's eyes flicked to her, then to the saloon window where Samuel's small pale face was watching. He smirked, a cruel, ugly thing. "So that's the kid you saved, Thorne? Shame if he never finished." Elias' gun was in his hand before a thought could form. A blur of steel and a clap of thunder. The bullet ripped Jeb's hat clean off his head, slamming into the post behind him. The street went dead silent, breathless. Death was in the air, waiting to choose a side. Jeb's nostrils flared. His voice came out low, a rattlesnake's hiss. "You always did shoot first?" Elias's reply was just as sharp. "You always gave me reason." Then a slow, chilling smile spread across Jeb's face again. "But today, I don't need to kill you." Every finger on every trigger in that street tightened. Jeb lazily pointed a gloved finger toward the western ridge. "Tonight, Thorne, sundown, the canyon, you come alone, or we burn this town to ash, and the boy with it." A hush fell over the street, sharper than any blade. Inside the saloon, Samuel gasped. Claire clutched her chest, her world tilting. Elias's jaw hardened into granite. "I'll be there." Jeb tipped his hat one last time and turned his horse. "Good. I want you alive when I bury you." The gang rode off, the sound of their hooves fading like thunder rolling away from a battlefield, leaving a darker storm to gather on the horizon. Back inside the saloon, the fear was so thick it was like frost on the windows. Claire walked toward Elias, her hands shaking, her eyes mirroring the storm outside. "You can't face them alone. They'll kill you." Elias didn't answer. He just stared at the floorboards, lost in a memory buried deep in his past. "What did they do to you?" she whispered, desperate to understand. He shook his head, his voice tight with unshed pain. "It wasn't what they did. It's what I didn't do." His gaze lifted, and it was haunted, hollowed out by a ghost she couldn't see. "I failed someone once. Someone small. Someone who trusted me." The room held its breath, listening to his confession. "And I swore I'd never fail again." Claire's voice shook like a candle flame in a draft. "You don't have to bear it alone." But as she reached for him, Elias stepped back, the walls around him slamming shut once more. "I do." He turned to leave, the open door behind him framing the cold, white, merciless day. "Elias!" she cried out, her voice breaking. He paused, his back to her. "You saved my son. Please, let us save you." He stood there for a long moment, a man caught between the death he felt he deserved and the life he was too afraid to live. Then, so quietly it was almost a whisper, he said, "Some men don't get saved, Mrs. Bennett." He pulled his hat low, hiding his eyes, and walked out into the snow. Behind him, inside the warm saloon, Samuel whispered one fragile, pleading word to the empty doorway. "Come back." The wind snatched it up and carried it after him, thin as a prayer. But Elias did not look back. Not yet. The sky over Willow Ridge bruised a deep purple as dusk settled in. The storm had passed, but its cold breath lingered, sharp and without mercy. Against this dying horizon, Elias Thorne rode into the canyon, a lone shadow on a lonely path. He wasn't carrying hope or any promise of coming back, just an old gun, a past heavy with grief, and a silent prayer he'd never admit to making. The snow crunched under his horse's hooves, a brittle, breaking sound. The canyon walls rose like ancient, silent judges all around him. And there, waiting like wolves around a campfire, was the Whitlock gang. Their leader, Jeb Whitlock, leaned on his saddle, his confidence a palpable poison in the air. "Right on time, Thorne," he sneered. Elias swung down from his horse, his coat heavy with frost. His voice, when it came, was steady, deeper than the canyon wind. "You wanted me. I'm here." Jeb's eyes glinted. "Not just you," he replied. "I want the whole legend. The cold man who feels nothing. The killer without remorse." Elias remained silent. Jeb's voice thickened with hatred. "You killed my brother. Shot him in the back like a coward." Elias's jaw tightened. He was burning a farmhouse with 3 children inside. A murmur of unease rippled through the gang. Truth, it seemed, could stir even the coldest hearts. Jeb's face twisted in a snarl. "He was my blood. He was a monster," Elias answered, his voice soft but firm. "And I don't regret stopping him." Jeb's hand crept toward his gun. "And now, I stop you." But before steel could sing its deadly song, a voice echoed through the canyon, thin, breaking, but brave. "Stop!" Elias's heart hammered against his ribs. It was Claire Bennett. She stood at the canyon's entrance, a thin shawl wrapped around her, her breath forming white clouds in the frigid air. Behind her, trembling but standing, was her son, Samuel. The doctor and the sheriff were there too, rifles ready. Jeb's eyes widened in amusement. "Well, ain't this sweet? Brought an audience." Samuel stumbled forward, his small voice fierce. "Don't hurt him. He saved me." The canyon fell utterly silent. Jeb just raised an eyebrow. "Is that right?" Claire's voice, though trembling, was laced with steel. "He carried my boy through a blizzard and gave him life. He's not the villain you tell." Jeb let out a low, bitter chuckle. "Redemption comes cheap these days." Elias turned to her, his voice harsh. "You shouldn't be here." But Claire met his gaze, and her look was unflinching, warm enough to melt the ice around his heart. "You don't walk alone anymore." Those words hit him harder than any bullet, a lifetime of building walls, and she was tearing them down with a whisper. Jeb spat on the ground, touching. "But it don't change fate." His hand flew to his gun. But Elias was faster. A lifetime of survival, of fighting shadows, all compressed into a single, fluid motion. Guns roared, echoing like thunder through the canyon. Smoke curled into the frozen air. 5 of Whitlock's men were down before the others even drew their weapons. But Jeb had fired too. Elias staggered back, his breath catching in his throat. A dark crimson flower bloomed across his side. Samuel screamed his name. The world tilted, the canyon spinning around him, the snow glowing red. But Elias steadied himself, raising his revolver one more time. Fate wasn't done with him yet. Jeb charged forward on his horse, pistol blazing, his hatred burning hotter than any fear. Elias raised his weapon. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. His breath turned to ice, his heart pounded like hooves on hard ground. One shot. It struck Jeb clean in the chest. The outlaw leader jerked, his eyes wide with disbelief, then tumbled from his horse and fell to the snow like a collapsing star. Silence. A profound, sacred silence fell over the canyon. The rest of the gang scattered like ghosts fleeing judgment. Elias sank to one knee, his world dimming. Claire ran to him, catching him just before he fell completely. Snowflakes gathered on his hat brim, catching on his eyelashes. "You stay with me," she whispered desperately. "You hear me? You don't get to leave now." He managed a weak smile, the first real, human smile he'd shown in years. "I told you, some men don't get saved." Samuel dropped to his knees beside him, grabbing his hand. "But you did," the boy whispered through tears. "You saved me." A single tear traced a path down Elias's weathered cheek. "You saved me first, kid." His voice faltered. "Your mama. She's something strong." Claire let out a choked, wet laugh through her own tears. "So are you." Elias's gaze drifted to the sky, where the falling snow glimmered like distant stars. "I thought I buried my heart years ago." His hand tightened weakly around Claire's. "But turns out, it was just waiting for a reason to beat again." Samuel's small, warm hand squeezed his. "And we need you," he whispered. In that fragile, sacred moment, life clung on stubbornly. Dr. Blake knelt beside them, pressing a cloth to the wound. "He'll live," the doctor breathed, "if we get him home." Elias closed his eyes, not in death, but in pure exhaustion, finally surrendering to rest. Claire held him tight, as if letting go might break the world apart. Days later, soft sunlight spilled over Willow Ridge. Elias awoke in Claire's small, warm home. A fire crackled in the hearth, and the scent of fresh bread filled the air. Samuel was asleep in a chair by the bed, clutching Elias's glove like a precious treasure. Claire stirred tea by the fire, turning as his eyes fluttered open. "You came back," she whispered. His voice was quiet, rough, but alive. "I reckon I did." Samuel's eyes opened and a sleepy smile spread across his face. "Hi, Cowboy." Elias blinked, feeling something soft and new blooming inside him, like spring breaking through a long winter. "Hi, kid." Claire stepped closer, her eyes bright with pride and gratitude. "You don't have to keep running anymore." Elias looked between them. The boy he'd carried through the storm, the woman who'd walked into a firefight for him. And suddenly, every lonely mile he'd ever ridden felt like a road leading directly to this moment. "No," he said softly. "I don't." Outside, church bells rang. Not a warning this time, but something gentler, hopeful. Elias Thorne lay back, his breath steady, his heart beating strong in his chest. He wasn't a ghost, or a legend, or a man made of ice. Just a man, finally allowed to feel the warmth he thought he'd lost forever. He closed his eyes and whispered like a prayer, "Some storms don't kill you. They lead you home." And in Willow Ridge, the snow kept falling, soft, clean, and forgiving, as a once heartless man found a place where his heart could finally live again.